Capricorn, what is going on? Hope you're doing well and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, I welcome you as well. So let's talk about Gemini moving into Uranus for the next 7 years. Let's take a look at how this is going to affect you. So this will be for Capricorn rising, Capricorn sun. And if you happen to know if when you were born, if you have your natal chart, if you know that the planet Uranus was in the 6th house when you were born. So obviously we're going to be talking about the 6th house here. So this is not going to be loud like it is in your 1st or your 10th house transits. But it is deceptively powerful because it reshapes, okay? What it's going to do, it's going to reshape your daily life, your work, your habits, and how you function basically in your day-to-day. So let's, so like I said, this will be strongest if you are a Capricorn rising, but Capricorn sun, this is going to be structure, discipline, and long-term focused identity for you. So basically your routines are being disrupted, and I know how that goes. I am a Capricorn Venus, so Venus is about dating, career, beauty, love. I get the energy of Capricorn for sure. So, you're going to be forced to build in a new way, the way you live and the way you work. So let's take a step back and let me go ahead and talk to you a little bit about the 6th house and what this rules. So like I said, it's your job. It is your work environment. It's the daily routine, and it's your schedule. So productivity and your habits. It's going to be about your health. So physical and mental patterns. And it'll be basically how you manage responsibilities. So your normal way of how you live stops working for you over the next 7 years. So let me step back and let's give you some real examples here. So your work life does become unpredictable. So jobs, roles, or responsibilities will suddenly change for you. So some examples of that, you could be leaving a job unexpectedly. You could switch off to freelance or maybe remote work or just a flexible, work schedule. You're changing industries entirely. So let's talk a little bit about the routine and, how you might see it needing to be rebuilt. So you're going to notice that old schedules that you had are not working for you anymore. You can't stick to a rigid system anymore. I get it. We like things to be planned out. We like things to be a certain way. We like to know what's going to happen a week from now, and that might change up. So some examples are your structured routine collapses and you experiment with new ways of organizing your day. So I'll raise my hand. I'm the first one that has to be ultra organized. I've been doing a certain position for 11 years at my day job. And I will tell you, I am filed and filed and filed. I have files everywhere. I have files in my email. I have files on my OneDrive. I have files everywhere. And I'm now I'm still doing the same basic work, but I'm getting handed a new type of work. So it's still in the same field, but the very first thing I had to do, Capricorn, I'm telling you, before I started doing any work on these new types of contracts that were coming my way, I had to do my filing system. Now, I will tell you, I'm noticing my filing, even though I have it structured, I have it filed, it's not as easy for me to toggle between those files because the work I'm doing is very different. So I was very streamlined and processed where I was coming from, and now I'm still processed, but it's very different. I can't, let's just say, the files I have to take my time and look at, even though I have a filing system, because each of those files, the numbering system's very different, and that's not based on me, it's based on other folks that I'm working with. So I'm already noticing, just me being Capricorn Venus, that it's going to be a little different for me going forward, okay? So the types of work that are emerging, we are now digital, right? Everything's technology. So, you're pulled towards more flexible, mentally stimulating work. Okay, so it's not going to be the rigid day-to-day. It's going to change up from day to day, is kind of like what's going to be happening. So the examples would be, okay, now you're working online more, or you're managing multiple projects instead of one role. I'm already used to that because I'm a Gemini rising, and I'm very used to juggling multiple things between problems, administrative work, and meetings and emails. I already do that, but for you, that I don't know what you're if you're a rising Capricorn or a sun Capricorn, you probably have a very specific way you do things. You probably are the type that maybe you like to do one thing at a time, and now you're going to be challenged to do multiple things at one time. But here's the thing, we are coming into the age of AI, all the tools. So it's now learning how to use these tools probably to start juggling your day-to-day activities rather than, focusing on your checklist. Right? I used to have a checklist, and I would sit down and my day would go sideways quickly because I had 5 other emergencies coming at me while I still had my list, and I couldn't always get through my list. So where you probably had your checklist and you had the mind to be able to go through one tasker at a time, where now you're going to be called to do a couple of taskers at one time. So a little bit more juggling comes into play for you. And that might not be something you're really used to. You're going to, like I said, you're going to be learning new tools and new skills, and it's going to be very quickly. So your productivity becomes inconsistent, but smarter. Okay. So it's just basically you working smarter, not harder, is basically the motto here for you. You're going to let go, you're going to go through bursts of high productivity, and then you might find yourself going through some downtime. So some examples are, some days are going to be extremely efficient, right? Like you're going to be able to get through that checklist like you're used to. And then other days, you can't follow the routine at all. And I personally, as a Gemini rising, Gemini moon, Gemini south node, I work like that anyway. So you're basically stepping into my role and how I act. And that's kind of how all of the zodiac signs are being forced to kind of work in the Gemini way through whatever period or whatever house they fall into during this transit. Like for you, you're going to be in the 6th house. So routines are going to be very different for you, where maybe before you could follow a specific routine, and that's not going to work anymore. So let's talk about health habits. Those are gonna shift suddenly as well for you. You change how you approach health and wellness. For examples, you're gonna drop old habits like overnight. Everything's gonna be very, very quick during this 7-year transit. You're going to try new, maybe diet. You're going to try maybe a new exercise program. You're going to do different things for mental health practices. You might start getting into yoga, or just basically forcing yourself to learn to do meditation, whether it's in the morning. Maybe you take a break in the middle of the afternoon and go take a walk and catch your breath, get some fresh air, and maybe clear your mind that way. Everybody has different ways of, going through like meditation. And so basically you're going to stop tolerating inefficient systems. So anything that wastes time is going to be unbearable for you. So examples are leaving jobs or environments that feel outdated or rigid. If it's not working for you, you're going to be done with it. So you could also be rebuilding your workflow, and you could be rebuilding it from scratch. So specifically, if you're a Capricorn sun, so you have to remember the rising sign is the exterior, so it is the events outside of us. Your sun sign, it's more internal. So this is where the tension and growth comes in. Capricorn, you like control, you like structure, you like long-term stability. So when Uranus is in Gemini, it brings flexibility and unpredictability. So, and constant change. And this is something you're going to have to learn to work through and deal with over the next 7 years. So, internal stress. So you're going to have control versus change. And, you feel like things are slipping out of control, and they're not. It's just you getting used to doing things differently. That's really all it is all of us shifting into the new age of AI and technology, and the way we communicate and the way we do things. So for an example, your carefully planned routine, or if you have a career path that's planned, it suddenly isn't going to work for you anymore. And that's because we're going to be in a fast-paced environment of juggling multiple things. So you learn to work smarter, not harder, kind of like I said in the beginning. You're going to shift from rigid discipline, and then you're going to find yourself being adaptive to efficiency. So for example, instead of, grinding nonstop, I know, I'm with you. I'm the same way. We don't stop. We keep going. We're workaholics. So I know, I get this. So instead of grinding nonstop, you find faster, more flexible ways to get results. And, the tools that are available to us and the tools that are not available yet, but will be soon, this is all all of this is to help us work smarter and not harder. So it'll allow you to be able to juggle multiple things and be more flexible. So redefining success. So success becomes less about stability and it's going to be more about adaptability for you. So an example for this is you stop chasing one fixed career path and allow multiple evolving opportunities. All right. So it's just opening a couple of doors, opening a couple of windows rather than just one. You're going to have multiple avenues. You're going to find that you need to detach from traditional work structures. And don't worry. We've got 7 years. We're not saying you're going to have to do this as soon as April 25th hits or within the first year. Okay? Because no, this is 7 years. It's going to take time for you to adjust. So you're going to question corporate, rigid, and outdated systems. You know, you're going to find yourself doing that. So, for example, you may move away from the strict 9 to 5 expectations into something that's just more flexible. You're going to build a new system that actually fits you. So after disruption, you create smarter, customized routine. So for an example on this, it's work-life structure that's more efficient and more sustainable than what you had before. So I don't know about you, Capricorn, but I haven't had much work-life balance in 11 years. So I'm looking forward to having more work-life balance. And I hope you are too. Just saying. So basically, so to layer this over between the rising sign and the sun sign together, okay, your daily life and work change externally. Okay, that's for the rising sign. So for the sun sign, your identity must adapt to new systems. So the experience for you becomes, I can't rely on rigid structure anymore. I need a system that evolves with me. Okay? So what is this going to look like for you realistically over the timeline? So in the early phase, you're going to get frustrated with your routine and your job. Just be mindful of that, okay? We're looking at probably the first year to first year and a half, maybe 2 years, okay? That's going to be a very frustrating time, all right? With your routines and your job. You're going to feel like your system isn't working. And that's because it's not. We are in the age of tools and AI. Everything's moving quickly and rapidly. And basically, we have to just keep up with it. And that's what you're going to be discovering. But by the middle phase, so we're looking at 2, 3, 4th year, really 2 to 3 years, your job changes, okay? Your routine disruptions. All right. You're going to find yourself experimenting with new workflows. So you're going to actually go from being frustrated to, okay, I'm going to start working with these tools. I'm going to start experimenting. I'm going to start doing things differently. I'm going to be flexible. Okay, I had this, I was going to do X, Y, and Z today. Oops, we have an emergency. Okay. So I'm going to do the emergency and then I'll go back to X, Y. Oops, not enough time. I'll get to Z tomorrow. So, you're going to find yourself reprioritizing things. What is the most important? Obviously, the hot fire in the frying pan, that's going to be your first thing that you're going to focus on. And then whatever is least important, if you can't get to it, you're going to throw it on the next schedule for tomorrow kind of thing. And you're going to start to feel okay with that. It isn't going to be like that for you at first, but eventually you will. So the peak phase of this transit, so I guess 5th to 6th year, that's a major shift in how you work and live daily. You're going to start to see that you're living this. You're juggling multiple things. You're actually very flexible about it. You're not going to be rigid about the structures anymore. You're going to go with the flow. You're going to be like Gemini, and you're going to be the shapeshifter, the chameleon that just rolls with the punches. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Because at some point, all zodiac signs has to learn how to fit in and feel what it's like for the other zodiac signs, okay? So by the final phase of this for you, so we're talking, the 7th year, a flexible, efficient system that works better than before, okay? And you're actually going to go ahead and find yourself successful towards the end of this transit, where in the beginning, you're going to struggle, but then you're going to be able to look back 7 years from, when we get to 2033, you're going to look back and be like, dang, man, I came a long way. I can't believe I used to be that way, and now you're a completely different person in the way you work. And you're finding you have so much more time in the day to do other things that you want to do. So obviously with these transits, we all have free will. So there's always going to be a risk or a challenge, okay? And so for Capricorn placements, your challenge is if you don't learn to adapt to being flexible and trying out new tools, changing up your routine. If you don't, you're going to find yourself burnt out from trying to force the control, because you're not going to be able to control it. That is it's a huge lesson, and I'm there with you. Trust me. I just had to do it like a couple of weeks ago. I was like, hold on, people, hold on. I got to build my files because I know I get it. I got to know where everything's at. I got to be able to function quickly, because if I don't, I feel like people are like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She can't keep up. She's a hot mess. No. We're not doing that over here. So I get it. Don't worry. Do it step by step. Like I said, it's over. That's why it's 7 years. This isn't a transit that's like for a week, right? You've got 7 years to adjust to this, and you're gonna do great. Trust me. But if you don't, you're gonna find that anxiety when routines break. Your anxiety is going to start to flare up, and you don't want that. Anxiety, creates internal stress, which can cause health problems. Remember, the goal here is for you to get work-life balance, right? So you can date, right? So you can get out there. You can, go do that triathlon you want to do, or train for it. It takes time to do that stuff. Another thing is, you're going to overworking to compensate for instability. That's not the goal here. That's what we're trying to get away from. And I'm with you. There were a few things I was hesitant about with AI and everything, but to be honest with you, I'm already starting to integrate that into my daily life. And, as much as we're all struggling with the change, we are going to realize, as we do dabble into different ways of living, different tools, different structures, we are going to realize that this is going to give us, hopefully, more of a life, okay, to do things that we want to do, and to be able to take on other projects at work. So the best way to use this transit is, the goal here is not to lose your discipline. Okay, because I didn't lose my discipline. I did my files, and trust me, I wasn't going to get away from doing my files. I got to know where everything's at. Now, with that being said, I'm still adapting to new types of contracts that I have not been used to. So I'm still on a learning curve, just like the rest of you. But it's to evolve, okay? This whole structure and transit is for us to evolve. The healthy way to approach this, stay consistent in goals, okay? I know you have goals. We all do. Stay consistent, but be flexible in how you achieve those goals. So remember, there's many different ways to achieve goals. And if you find something's not working, that means you need to change up and be more flexible to be able to get to that end goal. So, examples are same ambition, okay? New methods. So the big truth here is you got to remember, Gemini energy is flexible thinking. Uranus, the planet that is coming in with Gemini, is all about disruption and innovation. So it is disrupting us so we can learn to innovate, so we can be faster, quicker, smarter, right? With everything, communication and structures and goals and how we communicate with everybody. It's all to innovate. So for you, Capricorn, you're being trained to succeed. Sorry, we are still in post-retrograde, and I am still tripping up words. You're being trained to succeed in a world that doesn't follow fixed rules anymore. You also have to remember that we are in the age of Aquarius. So Pluto is in Aquarius, okay? That was the first big era shift for us, was we went from Capricorn, government and structure and authority. Now we're into Aquarius, okay? Aquarius is the rebel. They're creative. They're independent. They're unpredictable. They're eccentric, okay? They're the trailblazers. They're the humanitarians. So we are shifting major eras. And with your Gemini going into Uranus, this is just another piece of it. That'll be for 7 years. And then after 7 years, Uranus will go into the sign of Cancer. And that'll be a whole different ball game after this 7 years. But let's take it 7 years at a time, shall we? Let's not rush into the Cancer transit. So let's slow down. But anyway, yes, understand that, you need to be able to understand that there will not be a lot of fixed rules anymore, okay? So the final takeaway, this is to rebuild your life system transit. By the end of this transit, you're going to be more efficient and more adaptable, and no longer dependent on rigid structures to succeed. And this is beautiful, okay? I know it's going to take some time, but we'll get there. And I'm kind of right there with you, right? Even though I'm a rising Gemini, and the rising sign being in the first house, that's going to affect me the most, but it doesn't mean I won't feel what you're feeling, okay? All of us will feel all the houses because we all live in all the houses. But for you, the strongest for you is going to be the rising in the 6th house. So let's go get you a couple of oracle messages and we will close this out. We're going to start off with higher self messages. Whoa. You can't have that many, Capricorn. Look. You can't be greedy. You can't have all the cards. It's like you're trying to plan further ahead. All right. Goodness gracious. All right. Give me a message for Capricorns. Higher self, and then we will go over to sacred soul messages. All right, there we go. There are many doors that lead to the place you truly belong. Don't you remember me telling you that instead of having one door open or one window open, there's many doors, there's many layers, okay? And you're going to find yourself going through all the doors, working through all the different tools, and you know, having all these different schedule changes and working differently. Your diet's changing up in many ways. Your exercise routine, everything's changing up, and you're gonna have all these doors opened up, and you're going to be able to work with all of them simultaneously. And that's because we're coming into an era where we do have tools to be able to do this. And it is about working smarter, not harder, so you can be able to do multiple things, right? We're only here for a short amount of time. You know, we don't want to spend everything doing one thing at a time, and then you look up and then you go, what happened in the past 5 years? Well, that's because you were doing one thing at a time, and it takes time to get through all those. But now you're going to be rapidly changing, and then you're going to end up in the place you belong by being able to do multiple things. All right, let's get a sacred soul message. I hope this was informative. I hope it was helpful. If you found that it was, please subscribe, hit the like button, share. If you know any other Capricorns that could benefit from this, please feel free to share it with them. It helps the channel out, and I appreciate it, because I do plan on doing a lot more astrology videos that are informational, that will help you understand what transits are coming up, how to best harness those transits for your benefit, all right? Because the more you know what's going on in the sky, the easier it is to be able to maneuver here on planet Earth, all right? So let's get you a sacred soul message. I am not this hair. I am not this skin. I am the soul that lives within. Beneath the surface, looks can be deceiving. You know, there's more to you beneath the surface than what people see. People see a very structured person, you know, but you're also very dependable. So you're going to learn by the end of this transit that you can still be hardworking. You can still be productive. Okay? But it's more about how you deal with your responsibilities. You know, people are going to look at you differently because they're used to Capricorn being, you know, rigid with their schedule, rigid with the way they do things, you know, and then they're going to find that Capricorn is not only hardworking, but they are flexible. Look at that Capricorn go. Look at how far and how many things they're doing. Look at how they've changed, you know, just like with the hair and skin. You know, health routine. You're probably going to look better. You're going to feel better because you're going to have more time for you and yourself. So Capricorn, I love you guys. And I hope that you did get something out of this. And until the next one, I will talk to you soon.